time to study all of these programs and master them all so as to be able to make the changes he or she wants in all these programs. So we need more. We need Freedom 3. Freedom 3 enables us to work together to make the software do what we want. It allows any collectivity of users to take control and makes the program do what they want. Suppose there are 1 million users who want a certain program to be different in a certain way. Maybe 10,000 of these people know how to program. Just you'd expect, on the average, you know, out of 1 million people who use computers, 10,000 will know how to program. And maybe 10 of them will decide to implement the change the program, and then with Freedom 3 they can publish their modified version. And now all 1 million users can use the modified version. So if a few people who share this desire for a change do the work, everyone else can take advantage of it. Once they publish their modified version, now every user can choose between the original version and the modified version. And if there are 1 million people who want the change, the modified version will now become popular. And then further changes will be made by various people starting from there. And this sets up a situation somewhat like biological evolution. If there are a lot of people wanting the program to develop in this direction, a lot of changes in this direction will be made, and the program will make progress in the direction that a lot of people want. And if there are a few people who want the program to change in this direction, occasionally a change will be made going in this direction, so it will make slow progress in this direction. And if nobody wants it to go in that direction, nobody will make those changes and it won't go in that direction. So the users, by the sum total of their individual decisions, determine which way the program will be changed, and sometimes they can decide to make 2 different versions go in 2 different directions. If they're different people wanting different things, they can all have what they want as long as somebody does some work. Even if you personally don't know how to program, you can still directly influence the way the program is developed by paying somebody else to make changes. And of course, it's not all that common that individuals do this, but it's quite common for organizations and businesses and governments to do this. A user of the software, an organizational user, decides, we want the program to be different this way. So they go to a company of programmers and say, how much will you charge to make this change for us, and when can you have it done? And if they don't like that answer, they can go to another company and say, what will you charge? When can you have it done? Which shows that free software brings with it a free market for all kinds of support and services. That's in contrast to proprietary software. With proprietary, non-free software, support is a monopoly, because only the developer that owns the program has the source code, so only that developer can possibly make any change in the program. If you want to change, you have to beg. But with free software, you can just go out and pay somebody to do it. Because there's a free market for support, those users that consider support very important can expect to get better support for their money in general if they're using free software. There may be a choice of non-free programs to do a certain job, but in a paradoxical way, once you choose one of them, support is still going to be a monopoly. So you have a choice between different monopolies. That may sound strange, but if you look at it clearly, that's exactly what it is. In effect, this means you have a way of choosing who's going to be your master. But choosing your master is not freedom. So a choice of non-free programs is not good enough. We have to insist on having a free program to do the job so that we can do it in freedom. So these are the reasons why these 4 freedoms are essential. These freedoms make it possible for the users to control their own computing and give users the freedom to treat each other decently, to be good to each other. And therefore I say that we should all insist that software we use be free for us, that we always have these freedoms. We should say no to non-free software and work actively to replace it with free software. Work actively to liberate cyberspace and liberate all the citizens of cyberspace. Now, you'll notice I defined the concept of free software in a slightly complicated way. I said a program is free software for you, a particular user, if you have these freedoms. Why did I put that complication in? The reason is that the same code can be free software for some users and non-free for other users. This might seem strange, so let me give an example to illustrate how it happens. The biggest example I know of this phenomenon is the X window system, which was developed at MIT in the 1980s and released by MIT under a license that gives the user all four of these freedoms. So as released by MIT, it was free software. So if you got that version, it was free software for you. But among those who got that version were various computer manufacturers that distributed Unix systems. They took the source code of X, they made the changes necessary so it would run on their platform, and then they compiled it to make binaries. And they put those binaries into their Unix system and distributed only the binaries under the same non-disclosure agreement as all the rest of the binaries in their Unix system. Millions of users got copies of the X window system in this way, and for them it was just as non-free as Unix. They had none of these four freedoms. This created a paradoxical situation. If you ask the question, is the X window system free software or not, the answer depended on where you made the measurement. If you made the measurement coming out of the developers group, you'd say, here I observe all the freedoms, it's free software here. But if you made the measurement among the users, you'd say, most of them don't have these freedoms, it's not free software there. The developers of X did not consider this a problem. They were not aiming to give the users freedom. They were aiming for a big professional success. As far as they were concerned, those millions of users who had their code but not freedom were part of their success. But in the GNU project, our goal was specifically to win freedom for computer users. If the same thing that happened to X and had happened to other programs earlier were to happen to the GNU system, then we would be a failure. So I looked for some way to stop that from happening, something I could do in advance to prevent it. And I developed a method that we call copyleft. You can think of it as taking copyright and flipping it over. The reason for this is that it uses copyright law, but uses it to achieve the exact opposite of the usual purpose for which copyright law is used. Copyright law is typically used for a right-wing purpose, namely to keep people in subjugation and make them pay a lot of money. Copyleft uses the same law for a left-wing goal, that is, to facilitate cooperation and equality and to protect the rights of all the users.